minutes or, thank you, thank you. Do we have, so we'll call the meeting to order officially. Do we have an approval of the previous minutes or an amendment? Dick?
Okay, I just had one very minor thing. I'm getting a little embarrassed every time there's some minutes. I have something, but under the operating budget discussion for 2023, the very last thing was about how we were going to spend money and piloting electrical equipment. I think the discussion was purchasing electrical equipment, and that would be parks, capital P, apostrophe S, I guess. We were looking at ways we could spend a number of $1,000s, up to 3,000 or 4,000, to finish out our year. If there is some equipment that we could buy that was electrical, you know, that like electric chainsaw or something like that, we wanted to be able to spend the money and not waste it. So I'm going to just suggest that change piloting to purchasing. But Kelly, maybe you, because you wrote the minutes, do you have some idea why you said piloting or what?
I think it was just meant to capture that the committee wanted parks to try some equipment. So I think I inserted the word pilot, but we can say purchase, but I'm not sure that that's going to be possible. I mean, it's in the notes as that's what was discussed, but I'm not sure that the sustainability committee can purchase equipment for another department unless the other department, I don't know how that would work. We've had some conversations with Brian Gadow about that, and John Schaefer might have something to add on that, but.
No, yeah, because after the last meeting, I brought this up with Brian right away, and he said there's absolutely no way that we have any authority to spend any of that budgetary money on something other than what would be a normal budgetary expenditure. And any decisions about spending it outside of the normal usage or through other departments would all have to go back through budget and council. So they just simply said we can't do it. And so I asked him to talk to you, Christian.
Yep.
And I think he got in touch with you, but he was very adamant about that. So
we did have a short conversation. Thank you,
Yeah.
John, for leading that in. Brian and I also did talk about, and I was not aware of this, but we really can't fund or put money towards the high school composter because it's two different taxpayer funded entities. So I think, Dean, you were talking about that, you know, John, and so yes, that's accurate. So good point of note. So does that mean that, Kelly, I know one of the things we talked about, and I'm learning these rules too, does that mean we can't buy things like the recycling, the mock wanted, or the recycling center, you know, wanted bags for the styrofoam? Does that mean we can't, for recycling the styrofoam, does that mean we shouldn't really do that because it is another department and it really should go through council?
That's right. Brian was very clear that the money is not given to you as just a chunk of money. It's given to do the normal operating functions of the committee. And that if there's money left over, we can't then just make our own decision to use it as something other than normal operating stuff. Now, whether you can roll it over, I don't know, but he was very clear that anything outside of the normal expenditure purview of the committee can't be done by the committee. Okay,
great. And you know, you bring up a good question about rollover. I did not ask him about that. However, I did talk about, I did ask him about, are we at risk of, you know, not spending our budget, so then our budget gets cut next year? And he said, no, absolutely not. Many other committees had budget left over. Oh, it cannot be rolled over. Thank you, Kelly. So we can't roll it over, but we're still going to have, thank you. We're still going to have the same budget next year, and that's already done. So that can't be adjusted now. It won't be adjusted now.
Yeah. On the same topic, John, we come up with projects. For example, the Voss House, we made a project to decide to help them with some light bulb exchanges. And so we bought some light bulbs. So I'm curious about how you think our committee purview is and what we can spend money on. If it's, to me, it was always, if we are doing something to help the city, not just the city administration, but the community, reach some of our energy goals, I felt that that was in the spirit of how we can spend our money. Do you see
Well,
that?
yeah, I don't know whether spirit counts as opposed to the functionality of it. I
Well,
mean,
but-
to talk to Brian, I don't know every answer. Again, I'm new at this, but I talked to Brian about anything that was an expenditure outside of the normal purview of what the money was needed for by the committee. And I would guess that spending light bulbs for somebody else is not a normal expenditure from the committee. I mean, it's well spirited and all fine, but I think that if you want to follow the letter of the law, I'll check with Brian again. But Dick, you're probably the one who most should talk to him because
Yeah,
you
well,
get the
I
most
think-
questions,
Well, I think that's an issue we should be getting resolution on, because we have come up with projects to
Yeah.
raise community awareness, but we did a light bulb exchange project. Deb and I and some others spearheaded this a couple of years ago at the
Yeah.
for a paper shredding event, and we
Sure,
handed out
sure.
light bulbs. So
I mean, it may be that part of the budget is there to be used for projects. I don't know what your rationale is in a budget. Again, I'm brand new on the committee and all of that. And so I'd have to go back and clarify what the charge of the committee is. And when the budget is put together, you don't just request, I don't think it's just an open-ended amount of money. But they're probably categories, is that right?
Let's have Kermit go. He seems to know an answer here.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, basically, if the discussion is focused on the matter of, okay, what's the normal operating function of the committee?
Yeah.
By history and by budgetary expenditures that have been made, we have established a norm.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I would argue. And that norm includes identifying issues in the community that we can apply resources and attention to help advance our goals. The budget, historically, as I'm recalling it, has not been listed out in categories. We basically do historically have a lump sum that then within the creative purview of our mandate, we find opportunities to forward the goals of sustainability for the city of Middleton. So whether there's some felt need from Brian or others for a little more definition to the parameters and boundaries, that's maybe another discussion. But I think if we're saying normal function, we've established through our history a normal function that includes the spectrum of things that Dick has mentioned, for instance, and others of us no doubt can recall.
So, okay, how about if we do this? Let's table this discussion for now, and we'll come back to it when we get to the operating budget discussion. All good points. I think given the history, we want, there is that precedent, and so we have that, but also we want to stay within guidelines and boundaries that we're really supposed to. So,
Yeah.
well,
Hey, I'll withdraw my request for a minute change. Let's leave it like it is.
okay. So then, does anyone else have proposed amendments to the minutes? Not seeing any, then minutes are approved as
Right.
is.
Christy, if I could talk for just a second,
Sure,
because
sure.
I apologize, I have to leave in 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Because the
okay.
council has that special budget meeting tonight.
Oh,
At
okay.
7 o'clock, public hearing, open budget
Okay.
discussion.
Given that you have to leave, let's have you have the floor until you have to leave. What?
All right.
in your
Well,
mind?
in response to Kermit, I understand what you're saying, and it may be the case. I think it does need to be clarified deeper. At the time when I spoke with Brian, I remember the discussion from last time. We were talking about scholarships for kids and other things like that. And it seemed to me there was some fairly far-fetched, and the issue is mostly let's just spend the money rather than let's create initiatives that fit within the purview of the committee and then spend the money on that. So I'll get Brian to clarify this again. Maybe he's just going to have to sit in it and come to the next meeting for a couple, ask these questions, because I don't know all the answers. But I'll talk to him tonight, and I'll put the bug in his ear and have him engage on this a little closer.
Yeah, maybe Christy, can you get involved in this conversation? Being chair, it would be nice to have the chair understand these limitations too.
Sure.
Well, Chrissy, what I'll do is I'll talk to him and
Yep.
have him contact you directly, because you do have the history, etc. Yeah, and I think that would be, that would be a better way to move forward on this thing, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, John, you want to touch on the agenda?
No, that's it. Again, I apologize. This
Okay.
council set this meeting up about 2 months ago, and
Okay,
and it sits right on top of your guys' meetings.
no problem. Anything else, just quick before we go? You go, anything outside of the agenda, I guess we can't really do that, but anything you want us to know about council or anything else, maybe that pertains to the agenda?
I'm paying attention, hearing everybody, tonight, this is the first time through a budget cycle. And we
Okay,
haven't had much, and so I will learn a lot more after tonight.
okay. Thank you very much for joining
welcome.
us, as long as you could. We really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you. I'm sorry I have to miss the rest of the meeting, but I'll see you all next time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so, and we still have a quorum, I believe, so that is good. Okay, so let's move on to public comments. Does anyone have public comments? Robert Owen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Christy. Members of the committee, good evening. My name is Robert Owen. I live at 1311 Middleton Street. You're engaged in important work in recommending an SPP implementation plan to the city. I have a few comments on the current IP draft. First, I think it's a little bit too long in its discussion of things like cleaning and paper supplies still. And second, I think it's still also a little too enthusiastic about FELCA analyses. The city can't afford a full-time engineer to do FELCA studies. Please give some thought to reducing the number of FELCA analyses that are required to comply with the IP. When FELCA analysis is done and the cleaner option increases the cost by less than 15% over the dirtier option, the cleaner option should be adopted. In other words, this should not be a completely balanced exercise. There should be a preference for the cleaner option. I have some other comments. There are some what I would consider to be omissions in the drafting in the drafting committee's IP draft in 3 areas. I've addressed these in what are denominated citizen requests that I submitted to the committee a few weeks ago as to city building decarbonization of city-owned buildings, I should say, as to the airport and as to departmental energy reporting. Please adopt these recommendations. I think they're all important, and I would particularly emphasize the importance of the city building decarbonization recommendations. And then finally, I would like to thank all of you for your efforts to date. This is a tremendous undertaking that you've done here, and wish you all the best in completing the effort. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you. Kevin.
I am coming up on video here, I hope.
You'll get there.
Here we go. I just want to make a few disparate comments on things that are going on. I'd like to start by celebrating the Public Service Commission's decision to deny the drastic changes to rooftop solar net metering in the MG&E and Alliant Energy rate case proposals. The city of Middleton filed an intervention, and 350 Wisconsin did as well, with whom several of us are affiliated. Scores of individual citizens formally objected to the rate proposals through a Public Service Commission website, including at least 5 of our Middleton Climate Working Group members. This significant win will help keep solar affordable to a wider range of citizenry, and also is a significant testimony to the organized citizen climate and social action that can make such things happen. I also want to encourage the MSC to wrap up the draft SPP implementation plan soon, so it can begin its journey through the city approval process, which may or may not be easy. Although we are making progress in affecting city decision-making, the SPP IP should install a formal process that gives greater consideration to non-fossil fuel equipments. Also, similar to the city's climate change resolution 2018-32, which we refer to frequently, the Middleton Cross Plains School District has had their own approved sustainability resolution since 2021, when Daphne Wu was the major proponent, from what I understand. The district hired the consulting firm McKinstry in Seattle to prepare a sustainability planning report, which will be briefed at the December 4th school board meeting and should be available to the public in the meeting packet prior to that meeting as early as November 30th. I mention this to make you all generally aware that, as it turns out, that is to inform you that according to their website, McKinstry seems to be a broker, for lack of a better term, of information and services related to maximizing the opportunities available through the Inflation Reduction Act. If you go to their homepage, they right away grab your eye with that claim. And visitors can click on many examples of projects they're involved with and for which they help realize the paybacks of the IRA. And then finally, an item we've discussed as a group a few times with the city. We have an intern who's done some excellent research on low carbon concrete recently, and that can reduce the carbon footprint of concrete by up to 70%. And apparently now there's several providers in the area, one of which is called Eco Concrete. And we'd like to advocate that the city and the Sustainability Committee get behind advocating that the city consider this, particularly on smaller concrete projects like replacing driveways and sidewalks. That's all I have for tonight. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the staff report. Who has questions for Kelly? Questions, comments, thoughts? Dick.
Well, as always, Kelly, I find your staff report to be so intriguing, so much information. The first couple of items, I mean, I would like you to go through them a little bit because there's so much to digest. And while I read the report, I think, and unless the chair feels we don't have the time, the first one, of course, that we already know the outcome of that, so I don't think we need to discuss that. Although if there's any anecdotes to it, like how MG&E and Alliant are going to move forward, that would be useful information. But I think that the next couple up through the streetlight thing, I think it would be helpful just to kind of summarize it in words and with a little bit of, you know, additional comments might be useful. There's so much in here that it's hard to digest when we just get this Friday afternoon. And quite frankly, I don't look at stuff until Monday today. So I commend you for taking the time to write all this down, but I'd like to discuss some of these a little bit more, maybe going through them.
Okay, you wanted me to start with the efficiency navigator or the streetlight?
Yeah.
Efficiency navigator. Well, the short story on that is that it's been a whirlwind of actual work in buildings. So that means with 18 units, which would be 8 buildings, 18 units, Elevate Energy and Sustain Dane have really done the lion's share lift of coordinating multiple contractors to be on site to do the work. And it's quite a project management situation for Elevate because they have to coordinate weatherization with insulation, with air sealing, with people getting in there for water, heat pump water heaters and new furnaces and things like that. So it's really complicated, just the scheduling. And so it's been really busy, and we have weekly meetings to go over each building and what the schedule is and what's been done. And I've been on site a couple of times now to watch some of the work and meet some of the contractors. So there's just so much going on with this project, and the short story is that I feel like we're learning so much from this project about community-wide decarbonization. It's one thing to say we want to have these energy goals by 2040, 2030, whatever goals you put out there, but it's a totally different thing when you're tasked with actually trying to do it. Like, what does that mean? How do you organize it? How do you manage that? Where's the funding come from? How do you combine funding? How do you do the work? Are the contractors trained? What are the barriers and the challenges? Because we found in a lot of these buildings that even if it's clear what we should do with their HVAC system, sometimes a structural problem will hold the whole project back that we didn't catch when we did the assessment the first time. Like, once you get in and start pulling drywall off the walls and you realize that there's a huge water issue and it's soaked clear down through 2 floors, and you can't then trust those supports to hold a new roof or solar. Like, there's just so many things. And yet this is the housing that we really do need to preserve, because it's really the only truly affordable housing in Middleton. I mean, it's one really big source of unsubsidized affordable housing. And that's a lot of these buildings have some of the highest energy burdens for the tenants. So it's a priority, and a lot of other communities are seeing this as a priority as well. So that's the second part of that item, is about writing a planning grant with Middleton, which we worked on many hours to get that out the door. Hopefully we'll get that grant. Middleton did the heavy lifting along with Elevate Energy on that grant. And
Just as a quick follow-up question
yeah.
here, what kind of benefits in the energy reduction are you seeing? I get the complicatedness of it.
Yeah.
So that's all pretty obvious, and it's amazing. But what kinds of benefits are we expecting or hoping for? They must have done some audit of what they feel they could get if they put all this effort in. Do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, they did. I have a good slide that shows what they sort of projected. What really makes a huge difference is when you add on the solar. So if you don't have solar on the building, it could be between 15 and 30 or 40% in energy savings, or it's on the lower end of the savings. But then if you put on solar, it reduces the energy use and the cost to the tenants. So it's hard to know until you start doing the work what you can do in a building. So they're just sort of wrapping up some of those major projects, and they're still making decisions on a couple of buildings for solar. So I think they'll be able to do a report out to council and to this committee, probably at the beginning of the year in January, that will give some hard data. The systems aren't up and running yet fully to be able to actually measure, but they will eventually have those measurements on energy saved and cost savings.
Yeah, okay, so I don't want to
Oh, I said
hog
Deb,
the
but
time.
I was
Yeah, go ahead.
muted. Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry, Deb. I was like, why aren't you talking?
Because Dick is. No, because I couldn't get it unmuted. Anyway, so my question is, with all the LEDs that Dick mentioned earlier, the lights, are we going to be able to use those? I mean, it sounds like some of these projects are already wrapping up, being finished, and we haven't used any of those light bulbs.
Yeah, no, definitely. This I was going to talk about in a later agenda item under work initiatives, but what I really do feel like I need a little additional help from you, Dick and Deb, on that. I know you gave me a blurb months ago for information to include with the light bulbs, and I've talked a lot to Elevate Energy about this. And what we think might be the easiest is to provide light bulbs to the building owner and separate them out per unit, and just have a standard amount of bulbs that we give each unit, and have the building owner distribute those. And then each apartment would have the write-up within that bit of bulb with the allotment of bulbs. So I don't feel like I need help like assembling all that. I feel like we can do that but I want to make sure that the information we give them is what you want me to give them information wise in the boxes, and also see if you think that that sounds good or sounds okay to you to distribute them. We talked about different ways of doing it, but the tenants have had so many touches by contractors in and out of there just constantly the last 2 or 3 months that I felt like, I think we all thought it'd probably be better if the building owner could just give a box to each unit with information.
So do you need something from us in terms of writing up what's available? Or do you have that information from before? Or?
If you feel that what you've already given me is sufficient, then no. But if you want to add anything more or go back and look at that and see, do we want to change that, any of that information? Then once I do that, I can get those things put together before the end of the year and distributed. It's definitely not too late. We're gonna talk to all these building owners at the beginning of the year as well, and we're gonna do a press conference, and some of the work isn't finished yet in all the buildings, so I don't feel like we've like missed the boat or that we wouldn't distribute them to any one of those. I think all the apartments will get bulbs.
Is the building owner excited about these updates and all these things? I mean, and the tenants, how is everybody's, are they, you know, do you hear that from them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it took a while for them to believe that this project was real. And once they got into it, they realized how substantial it was. And they started making decisions that were more in their court. Like one building owner is willing to perhaps take on the tax liability and pay for solar. And then if we can figure out how to do it, sub-grant some of the money for the solar to him, but that way he can take the 30 or maybe even up to 50% rebate from the IRA for the solar. There's a lot of like internal things that really no one's done this yet. So we're talking to different consulting companies. We're talking to the feds. We're talking to different agencies. Like how would we do this? I'm going to meet with Baker Tilly and talk to them about how to make sure that this program can take advantage of IRA funds. It's not simple, the paperwork for it. And so tenants have spoken to Elevate Energy when they were on site, and they were very thrilled with the project, thought it was really great. They felt really good about it, that it was happening in their building. And they said a lot of really interesting things. And we said, well, maybe would you be willing to speak on camera? And they didn't really feel comfortable doing that for a press conference, but there's definitely people talking positively about the program when people are on site. Building owners as well have had a positive experience, but all of them, I would say, are tentative in that they want to see how the systems work before they give any kind of final stamp of, you know, it's their building, and we've really been in there a lot. So I think they want to make sure that it works the way they hope it works before they'll say anything publicly.
Fair enough. Is this the case, this 8 unit, is it, you know, some apartment buildings, you know, have utility paid by the landlord and then that's included in the rent. And then others, you know, pay their own. How is this one structured?
In order to be eligible for this program, the tenant must pay their own utilities.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we have
Good.
some 2-unit and some 4-unit buildings, and there's 18 units total.
Right. Okay.
And then, did you want me to say anything about the street light? Maybe that seemed like something Dick was interested in hearing more about.
You want to hear about that, Dick? We'll keep it sort of short. I just want to, I'm not trying to cut it off, but I want to make sure we get to the implementation plan for sure. So go ahead, Kelly.
Okay, the streetlight grants, I spoke with Rob Winterton, who's our contact at the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. They're the ones that are administering the funds that they receive from the federal government for the carbon reduction program. Our local MPO in Dane County, they were the entity that read the applications, selected the grant winners and the amounts, and then forwarded that on to WISDOT, which then okayed the recommendation by our local MPO and granted us the grant funds. We signed a contract with WISDOT back in July of this past summer. And then they said, we will countersign it. It'll take 3 to 4 weeks. And it's been many months. And so talking to Rob, he said the federal government hasn't approved their budget for 2024, even though our project was scheduled for 2023. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation, they couldn't get the contract formulated or the funds figured out for 2023 by the deadline. And so they were very hopeful they could just roll over the award to 2024, but they cannot authorize the 2024 funding yet because the federal government has not reviewed their funding plan, and it's held up at WISDOT and the federal government. Both of them need to do some internal things before they will authorize funds. So we will not be able to order any streetlights until the earliest would be probably February of 2024, which is disappointing, but there's nothing that I can do. I talked to Rob, he said there's absolutely nothing you can do. Like, there's no convincing it. You have the funds, you won the award, but we cannot authorize funds until the federal government reviews our plans and releases the funding.
Thank you. Any other items on her report, Dick, you're interested in? No, okay. I don't see any other hands. Okay, thank
It's
you,
all
Kelly.
lovely, beautiful.
Yes, okay, thank you, Kelly. Your report is always very thorough and helpful, and thank you for explaining. Okay, so what I would like to do now is start with Laura with this. And I would first like to give some public credit here to Laura and Dean, but Laura really took this. And my mom always says, like, my parents are like, took the bull by the horns. I don't actually like that description, but it's really what she did. So go for it, Laura. Take the floor as long as you want to be able to just give this a preface.
Okay. All right, so you can hear me, right? Get the mute. Okay. Probably a better metaphor is trying to untangle a hairball or something. We just had all this stuff from all these different hands. So I wanted to at least explain where this structure came from, my thoughts, and how it might be beneficial. So Lisa Alder Gennaro, she was the one who put the original categories in there. And so I felt uncomfortable cutting out anything because she's an Alder, she put them in there. And so the guidance sheets are the categories that existed from the very first implementation plan. And I didn't add to or take away. So some of the comments, that Bob Owen made about maybe being too long and heavy on paper, or were too enthusiastic about the Falca tool. I just kind of left the structure, that stuff in there, kind of the meat of it, the content. And what I focused on was structure and eliminating the, I don't want to say duplicating information, but we had a lot of language in there about why. Why are we doing this? And the answer was because it's in the sustainable purchasing policy. So I stuck more to the how. It's an implementation plan. If you want to know why, go to the policy. And so I just gave like a kind of overview, brief why, cut the majority of that out, and then tried to get to how would you do this. I chose to do kind of an overview and have that flow chart. So Kelly, if you could kind of scroll to the flow chart real quick so we could see that on screen. The idea is that as we kind of create this thing and it grows, so we've got the specific guidance sheets that exist because of those are the categories that were in there and the tools. If we need to add things like the suggested categories that Robert Owen made, then that's something that I guess has to be determined a little bit by policy. I think we really need to look at the policy. I couldn't just add that, so I didn't, but I didn't want to ignore it. So I kept it in the citizen suggestions to say this could be where we're going. But I think it all has to be tied to the policy. So as best I know, all these guidance sheets and all the standards stuff in there is tied to the policy. And then in listening to the comments of it being too long, too wordy, too direct or micromanaging, I tried to kind of break it out. And if you can just go to one of the guidance sheets, I tried to say, okay, here's your brief overview. Then here's your general guidance, what we're actually trying to achieve here. And how can I say that in as few words as possible? Those are the red ones, least toxic option. And then I have like a standard in there, which comes from the policy that we're supposed to be looking forward. And then the other big thing that came up was measurement. Well, I kind of just had to make up some measurements because again, getting back to what our new alder was talking about, we don't want to tell people how to do their job, but we do need to have something in there that it has to be measured. So I just tried to come up with some beginning measurement idea for each particular standard. And I tried to make them all the same so that as I see it in the future, whoever needs to get this information, you'd have the overview. All right, this is what it is. And then you can just go to the guidance that you need without having to scroll through a 20-page document. Now, if you want to put it all back in with appendices, that's fine too. I thought, why not eliminate the scrolling by just having these 2 to 3 page documents? You read the one that applies to you. And then I also kind of saw this as it's going to be going through staff review. And so they can say, this works, this doesn't, put it all back together and make those appendix very simple to do. But this is kind of an overarching, view of, I'm trying to make it user-friendly, easy for the reader, easy for staff, not tell them exactly what to do, but give them guidance and what we have to do based on policy. And my thought was, we're trying to do a little culture shift here. I know Joe Parisi at the Dane County level, he wants sustainability to be the default, and then you have to explain why you didn't go with that choice. And I thought that kind of sounds what we're trying to do here. And that's why it's like, if I don't choose the more sustainable option, then I have to explain that. And I tried to put that in there. And I also tried to show our appreciation, because we can talk all we want, but it's the staff that are actually going to do the hard work and implement it. And so I tried to convey our appreciation in terms that, we're genuine, and also to kind of work with them, and we might discuss, any training or anything after that. So that's kind of the overview of where this came up, and that my focus was on structure, not on making choices about what should and shouldn't be included in the categories.
Dean, you're up. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's just wonderful writing, wonderful organization. And it's so clear that it's just the way it ought to be. The problem that I have is actually with the designation of things that citizens request, and saying that we're going to confine ourselves to a policy such that if everybody met 100% of what we have implementation plans for, we wouldn't meet our goals as a city, because there are big carbon items under citizen request. So the airport and the elimination of natural gas from city buildings, HVAC, and cooking, and actually also we ought to be putting in a section about cement and building issues in terms of carbon. So I think that rather than saying these are citizen requests, I think we as a committee should say, we would like the policy extended to include these things so we could write an implementation plan that follows up on those big carbon items. So that's the part that I wouldn't want to have not included while we still have somewhat of a chance, presumably, to extend the reach towards more of the carbon. I don't believe that the council in its resolution or the city citizenry in its referendum said, we'd like you to get down to the council would like to get you down to 66% of the carbon we happen to include in the policy by 2030 and 100% of the carbon we happen to include in the policy by 2040. I think we ought to try to push that envelope out a little farther. Thank you. But thanks, Laura. The whole way it reads and way it flows is just much more likely to get people to do it. So thank you.
I'm going to quickly just comment on the HVAC. That's a good point. And it's not that I disagree with the other things, but the HVAC, I had thought of it even last week and didn't even reply back. Laura, I should have mentioned that, you know, I think they are open to talk. I know they are actually talking about the HVAC and things like that. And so I forgot to put that in the comment, in my feedback to you. So that's not off the table at all. In fact, I talked with Brian Gatto today about this, which I'll bring up a different little flowchart thing I did. But he said, yes, I mean, and Kelly has mentioned this too. So right now there's 3, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Kelly, I don't know these details like you would, but there's several buildings, the library, the senior center and the city hall that are old, and they may get, you know, sort of torn down in 3 years. Well, there's no point in making a major, you know, investment in retrofits if something's just going to go away in 3 years. And so that's some of the things they really are interested. Definitely, it's clear that, you know, Brian was very clear today that, you know, they really want to do a lot of these things, but, you know, they don't want to waste the money either. And so, you know, we can do a lot of things while the city can do a lot of things while that gets sorted out too. So not just going to sit around and say, well, we can't do anything for 3 years. We don't know. No, they want to be active, but there is that consideration. Other comments for Laura? Questions? Kermit?
I'm just wondering to what extent to say the policy doesn't embrace addressing or raising purchasing policy issues or purchasing plan implementation opportunities for like the airport or the buildings is too narrow of a reading of the policy, because it seems like the resolution itself provides a fairly broad mandate in my estimation. You know, the 2018-32 to make meaningful steps to address, you know, the decarbonization goals. And so I'm just wondering to, you know, is that what we're falling into, is having too narrow a reading of the policy? Because again, I see the policy mandate as being much broader to include those additional things.
To tell you what, the policy, the implementation plan, what I was trying to say is I followed the template given to me by Lisa Yanero. And these are all the categories she had. So you could say that she just didn't think to put those in there in the beginning, like directly. And so it's possible that that was always intended to be there, But then when she handed it off to us, I mean, I remember when we first started working on it, Christy,
Mhm.
you know, there were a lot of grand ideas of tying it directly to the policy and having links and having these things, and that just got bigger and bigger and more confusing. And so then I'm like, let's just, this is what we have, let's chop it down, get it to the point, and then I'm not opposed, like I said, I'm not opposed to adding those things. I'm happy to do it, but I didn't feel, I haven't looked at the policy to see, you know, what's a standard for the airport? What's a standard for the build, you know, is this other, the buildings, is that coming up under the building codes? That was a little beyond my understanding of, you know, what this was. And so I just went with what Lisa basically said, let's focus on this. And then, but like I said, if we need to work those other 3 categories in there or work in cement, I haven't looked at the policy recent, you know, I haven't scoured the policy looking for better ways to, you know, add to the plan. I just took what we had and what Lisa had started us off with, and tried to clean it up the best I could.
I think that's a good point, Kermit and Laura, that, you know, just because something isn't in here doesn't mean it shouldn't be, you know, but we could probably keep coming up with a list like daily, you know, for something we forgot and things like this. And then that leads me into the next point about right now, I feel, and I hope, or let me know what the group thinks, but I think this is in a very good place to start the very important part of staff input. So the next phase is, Kelly, if you wouldn't mind, would you throw up that chart? Thank you. I'm sorry, Brian Gatto was kind enough to take a few minutes. He's so busy, but I kept the conversation very quick with him, but I talked with him today at 1 p.m. And we went over something that he has just mentioned to Kelly several times too, that, and it touches to what people here are saying, and what I'm hearing from you is that, okay, this is a document. How do we ensure that it gets used and not just gets on the shelf? And that's something we have talked about for months. And the way to do that is to get the staff bought in and excited about this and get their input and gather their ideas. So these are our ideas, but they're, like Laura said, they're the ones who are actually doing the job and doing the hard work. And so, you know, and they will have ideas. And so if we want to make sure that they feel like they're a part of this and we're not just coming in telling them, wait, we know better than you. And, you know, why haven't you done this before? That just is not going to work. It wouldn't really work with anyone. You know, we want their ideas, their input, their buy-in, and maybe, I'm sure, well, not maybe, they will give us ideas about how to make this more usable and more applicable to them. Is that chart available,
Do
Kelly?
you not see it?
No, we see like your,
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. Okay.
okay, I'm sorry, you could have just cut me off. Next time, just cut me off. I can find it too if you can't.
No, I have it. It's just a matter of, do you see it now?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what Brian and I talked about. And so I just put it in this visual. I like these kinds of visuals. Just to say, okay, Brian suggests, because Kelly and I were both wondering, Kelly and I met last week, and it's like, okay, we both agree, and I fully agree. Yes, the staff input and buy-in is key. How do we do that? What would work best? And Brian, Kelly mentioned Brian had experience with this similar type of thing in Monona. I don't know if some things did work or didn't work, but we can learn from that. And so he suggested a subcommittee, you know, so we can figure out who that is, meets with the 5 key departments. So Public Works and Fleet, he mentioned that number 1. You know, we'd go meet with them collaboratively. And I really want to stress collaboratively, because that is how we're going to get this moving. And so Public Works, Fleet, Parks, the building inspector, which would tie in all of the HVAC, because I actually talked to him specifically about HVAC. How do we deal with some of these, you know, we don't want to replace whatever. And so he said, oh yeah, like, I think the guy's name is Jim. Isn't that right, Kelly? He said, yes, meet with him. He'd be very happy to meet with you. Then the general office purchasing is Bill and Brian, and then the library is what he suggested to start with. And then, so he called those kind of the key departments, then we get their ideas, their input, and I'm sure they'll come up with things we haven't even thought of. And then, so then we incorporate that, then we go to, Kelly, there's only 13 departments total, right? This was something when I was, so there's like 5, plus 8, right? 5 plus 8, right? It's
I
not
don't
5
think-
plus 13. It's right.
I'm not sure. I have to pull up the.
Okay, I think it's 8 more. He just said then meet with all 13 departments, but we would have already had met with 5. I believe it's 13 total. So 8 more. So then we do that, get all the input and he suggested not meet with whole departments, like at their departmental meeting, but just the heads first. And they can invite the people they want to invite. He said, with Public Works, Sean Stosky would probably add in, who's the guy we talked to about salt and the salt trucks, Kelly?
Brad.
Brad, he said, oh, probably invite Brad, which would be a great discussion. Very helpful, and and that's how we move forward with this. And then once we get the staff bought in, then we package it all up pretty for Common Council review and hopeful approval. How does that sound to people? Good, jump in, just jump in.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a very reasonable plan. And I think the other aspect of this is we can try to create a strategy for the discussions as well. But the key thing Laura was able to weave right into her writing was the fact that we need to look at measurement and how much progress did you make with the last 6 months or the last year, and then repeat this cycle annually or every 6 months or whatever the appropriate frequency is, so that we keep moving forward, even as we say, well, we can go faster on this and slower on this, and because there's all kinds of practical reasons we won't know until we meet with these people. But I think it's a great idea as long as we also incorporate measurement in meeting the 2030, 2040 standards.
Okay, measurement. Kelly, did you have a comment? You had your hand up for a little bit.
No, never mind. I can take it offline. Never mind.
Okay, are you sure? Okay. Okay. So yes, so measurement, that actually ties in. I don't want to get into the weeds in it right now, but I got asked a question by someone else in the public about what are our goals. And I know we have goals, but I actually am not that fresh on them myself. And so Kelly actually pointed me to where they are. And what I would like to work on developing is yes, we have them in all these different documents, but let's bring them all together and make sure that we all really understand, and we can help the public understand what's at stake here, what we're doing from a goal standpoint, maybe just presented in different ways so that we kind of catch more people with them. That's my thought. Other thoughts, comments?
I think that's a good idea. The other thing I was thinking is in the opening, when I'm like, okay, since I cut out all that stuff that gave all the goals, gave all the details, and just said, look at the SPP, we could make a list of here are the goals we're trying to achieve. We could make that even a separate document where any citizen or someone can click on it. Here are our goals. And then in the package, we can have everything we reference. You could just have references and I didn't want to put it in there because I don't want people to think they have to read the, city sustainable city plan or the purchasing policy again, because that exists. But when it's organized, one thing that did kind of come up while we were talking is maybe we need to have the new communications director involved. I think that he's doing a good job with external communications. I'm getting a lot of more stuff, but I don't know if internal communications is part of it or not. But just how everything's organized on, you know, the website so that staff can find it quickly, easily. It's all grouped together and things, because there's just so many moving parts here. It's too big for one document. But if we keep the documents separate, then it would be nice that they always know where they can go. So every time we, you know, add something new, a new category, because I do see this growing and changing over time. I mean, it's one of those problems that's going to keep, it's not going away. So it would be nice. I try to think of that in, you know, how can we just kind of add to stuff and that the new stuff doesn't get lost in the old stuff. But having a goals, you know, page, document, something I think would be helpful to all.
Yeah, and maybe you know, certainly it was in the format of words before, and you know, I think we were trying to cut the words. There was just a lot of words, and some people love to dive into a word, you know, document, but other people, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, it's overwhelming. And so, you know, again, just speaking to, if we do the goals, maybe have some like big numbers and, you know, just couple different formats to make it adapt to a lot of accessible, I guess. So, okay. Well, so is everyone okay with this, with us moving forward with this stakeholder input? And who do we want to do that? It would be, Laura, do you think you can take the time? Are you teaching next semester too, or just this one?
I am teaching next semester, another new prep. It's the second
great.
8 weeks, but I will be gone part of it. I mean, I would have some time in December maybe to meet with like the 5 department heads.
Yeah.
So I could get us like that far. And then if they're like, okay, we need this, if you can, you know, give me stuff, I can try and, you know, like I said, type it up. But yeah, I'm at the point where I make sure that we're all on agreement, and then you guys just tell me how to type, how you want it. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm cutting stuff that's important to keep and not cutting stuff that we've all agreed that it can go.
Yeah. Kermit.
I'm still kind of hopeful for, especially if we're going into this transition into kind of like the bureaucratic coordination, the staff input, that we get input on some of the other issues that have been raised that are right now kind of in this, what do we call it, Shadowland, the citizen request category, where I think those are still things that are justifiable and defensible under the broad policy umbrella of what we're trying to do, whether or not it's spelled out in whatever immediately adjacent policy statement we might be working with here. And I'd like to see this be part of the discussion. I mean, to somehow add that so we can make headway now while we're trying to get people's input and trying to make headway, rather than not even bring it up, you know, the building decarbonization issue in particular, until down the line. I mean, just to get this policy and implementation dimension into the discussion and into some level of implementation.
Okay, Laura. Oh, Laura, then Dean.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was, if I don't have time to go through the policy again, but in order to do a standard, it has to be tied to the policy. So if somebody wants to go through the sustainable purchasing policy plan, I mean, that, and you can find, like, I guess the standards or tie it together. I don't know if someone maybe wants to contact Lisa. I mean, I don't have time to do that. I can type it up, but I've got a lot of stuff to grade and things to do.
I feel like that feedback is helpful. I feel like that would have been practical several meetings ago. That's what I'm feeling like, because it's just taken so much to get it here that we can always improve upon it. But that's my thought. Dean?
I mean, I'm not opposed to any of this. I think that all of those categories should be included. And I would have added them in, but I didn't have the time to comb through the policy again, because you can't just make up standards. That's what has to be done. I could make up guidelines and say, here's what we're talking about and use my words, but I am very uncomfortable with making up a standard. That has to go through committee, alders. I'm uncomfortable doing that myself.
Dean,
Well, I think the sustainable purchasing policy, luckily, we could probably find ways to link at least a couple of the building and indoor carbon emissions and pollutants to things that are in here. But it's one of the things you end up looking at these documents is you have to say to yourself, look at how fast things are changing. We are going to need to have an updating process annually to keep this up to date with what technology and new challenges bring to the table. I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen in the next, 16 years out to 2040, where the resolutions end. But I think we can at least tie in the idea that eliminating natural gas from buildings via HVAC and cookware can be fitted into a couple of these very broad topics.
perfect.
Building cement and the amount of carbon that comes from that. The thing that's so important about that is if people get started planning with all this, either renovation or doing whole new building projects, they should be thinking up front about how they're going to heat them and what they're going to build them out of. And so getting too far behind on that, even though I can't necessarily see exactly how that's in the policy, that just worries me to get behind. So anyway.
So what's a plan of action?
Well-
Do you want to just slip those things in?
Well, I could forward. I mean, I don't think I can do. I think I've proven I cannot write like Laura.
Laura is pretty superb.
Okay,
you
so
gotta say.
I mean, I think that if you look at the policy has environmental and health benefits, and talks about lowering greenhouse gas emissions and minimizing pollutant releases to air and water, including indoor air emissions. Those two things will allow you to talk about both HVAC and cooking, gas cooking inside. So they're kind of part of those.
Kind of part of those.
But that's how vague the purchasing
Yeah.
policy is.
Yeah.
So
Well, we still have the staff input, that these can come in as long as they're on our agenda. I really want to be careful. Laura's very busy with a new job and she has
Well,
so much
I'll
time.
give
in
it
this.
I'll give it a shot
Yeah.
on those two topics, and
Well, unless Laura, like you think you can slide these things in 15 minutes, like, can you get this done in 15 minutes or less or not? Because I don't want to put anything more on you.
And I can't really get anything done in 15 minutes or less, but
Yeah.
with, Dean, if you have, like you
Yeah.
did ask me to put in a couple of, a work on a standard, which I thought did tie it in,
Yeah.
and you had me make a few changes. So
Yeah.
if you can put it in and highlight it, I mean,
Yeah.
editing is always easier than creating.
okay.
And so if somebody else wants to create it and then, highlight it, the comments in the side, my preference, if I am going to continue editing, is that we clear out the comments and just start and go forward, so that every new comment that comes in, I see it, because at some point it kind of gets embedded. You have all these old comments that never got cleared out, and I can't find what's new and what's not new. So if we like clear out all the old comments, and then I see here's Dean's new stuff, here's Kelly's comment here, and then it goes to staff, and that's further on down the staff, that makes it much easier to edit. If I have to keep all those comments in there, you're gonna spend, I can spend hours just reading those comments and
Yeah.
not knowing what to do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so do you two have a plan?
At least on that,
That
that
part,
part.
that part, yeah, that's what I mean, that little
Yeah.
part of these. You're gonna do the create and
I
Laura's
mean,
gonna-
frankly, Bob Owen has already written, unfortunately, he has wonderful facts and has a lot of words more like mine. And we need to put it together. I mean, they're all very good thoughts. They just need to get put into this implementation plan format.
Okay.
And,
So you-
and so they don't hang out there. I don't think it's good to have very important things hanging out
Hanging out
as
there.
citizen requests, like one
Yeah.
person came up with it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's fair. So do you two think, I know Bob, you can't talk, but I know you're listening. Do you two think, Dean and Bob, that, I guess I'll pose this to Dean, but you could give something to Laura that hopefully it won't take her too much time to edit? Is that just to confirm? That's what okay, all right, that's what I mean by the plan. So
Okay.
Just try and put it in roughly the same format that the template that we made.
Mhm.
Try and put it in that format, and then I will try to clean it up, put in a measurement, put in,
Yep.
it'll at least be similar for everybody else who's reading it, and I'll make it try and sound of one voice.
okay.
Great.
And I just want to say, I know Bob can't talk, but he's listening. And Bob, your input is really, really helpful. We are reading it, we're seeing it. We're just trying to get this under control, the whole thing under control and moving forward. So your input's important, and thank you. So, okay. So then it seems to me like that the amendments are in progress, thanks to Dean and Bob. And then Kelly, what do you think about working with Laura to find, and Dean, do you want to be included in these subcommittee meetings with the staff?
I'd love to, is
Okay, yeah. If anyone else wants to speak up, that's fine. Kelly, what do you think about trying to work with Laura based on her availability? My schedule's, pretty flexible right now. What do you think about working with Laura to try to set up the first 5?
Yeah,
With you,
yeah, I can coordinate the 5 meetings and go to all of them. Yeah.
yeah, we would want you there, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And is there any advantage to consolidating those meetings as far as, does it need to be with each? I mean, if it's just the 5 department heads, that seems like that could be a manageable meeting with 2 or 3 people from the subcommittee,
Right. So
just to expedite things. I'm just brainstorming on
Oh,
that
yeah,
point.
yeah. So I got the impression from, well, Kelly, if you want to clarify with Brian, if you want me to, either one, it doesn't matter who, but I got the impression, I guess I left with the impression, whether that's right or wrong, that be like, whether the meetings are, let's just make it up that they're 30 minutes each. So that means that, whether we did 5 30-minute meetings back to back or something like that, but they would be separate because the public works person they're busy. They don't really want to sit around and listen to the library stuff. So that would be a little bit of a way to respect their time as well, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think they're so different that the discussions would be completely different.
Okay.
And I think Public Works and Fleet will require its own time for sure. That one
Yeah.
more than
Good point. Okay.
I think that's what it sounded like to Brian, was that he felt like the best way is to start with these, and I really feel like we're in a good place going into this. I really do. Brian is very much wanting this to work, and he's trying to work with us to make it successful. That was clear. And so this is a great start. And I feel like I just really want, and I know everyone will do this, but this is what I told Brian, you know, that we really want to come in with a collaborative approach. We want their ideas. We really truly want their input. This is not something that we just want to slap on them and say, we know better than you. And I've already said this, but you know, and he said, oh, good, because that's how it's really going to be put into use. And so, I hope everyone agrees with this, or if, you know, what, does everyone agree with this approach? Yes, no, any other ideas, thoughts? Good, okay, okay. Thank you again, Laura, Dean, Kelly for helping, everybody, thank you. Okay, so I think we can actually move on to the budget discussion. This is exciting. Kelly, so we have well, do you want to talk about this year's budget, Kelly, and then we can go to next year's, or do we? I guess we could still talk about that, for this year, even though we don't have all the answers.
Do you see, first let's get the screen up. What do you see? Do you see the agenda or the
Guidance.
packet?
Yes,
See the SPP.
Okay. Do you see it scrolling?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. All right. Okay. So I feel like this discussion is a little different now after hearing from Alder Schaefer. And I feel like I need to go back and speak with Brian Gatto. I feel like I can make a pretty decent case to Brian if I show him the last 3 or 4 years of expenditures from our operating budget, that we use it on quite a wide range of items, both initiatives and things like parking. So it runs the gamut. And also there's a lot of line items that still include recycling expenses. And we've really tried to eliminate more of the recycling expenses and put that into the into the operations department and the public works budget. But there's a few things that sneak into our operating budget, it seems like, every year. So I went through and looked at things that items that we have spent money similarly on in the past years, and things that we need for this year, and came up with approximately $4,000 of expenditures for this year that would take up about most of the remaining budget in the operating budget. And those would be, one item was requested by Brad Hopwood. He said, I heard that you have some extra operating budget, and because you've helped us in the past and have been a part of the recycling center's budget expenditures, we have an item for $1,300 that we need in order to recycle styrofoam, and was wondering if we could use some of our operating budget at the end of the year for that. So that's one request. Another request is, there's a training that I really feel like I need to attend, no matter who pays for it. And it's about construction bid and procurement contracts and training. And I feel like in the planning department, we're not really trained on how to do construction bidding. And it's a really long legal, technical engineering process. There's a lot of steps and a lot of ways you can really get into, put the city at risk if you don't know what you're doing with contracts, with legal issues. And I've run into those, so have other planners, so have people in public works. And so they're offering I forget what the organization name, it's an agency in Wisconsin, they're offering a training to go, it's a full day certification to learn how to do proper procurement with construction bidding. And I think it'd be valuable to attend. And Brian Gatto is supporting of me attending, and so are Abby and my supervisor. So
yeah.
Kelly,
do you mind if I just put you on hold for a second? First of all, I personally 100% support you on that. So we have Scott joining tonight. Just Scott, welcome. Do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk to the group? about?
Yeah, so yeah, Christy and I talked last month and decided it's probably best for me to sort of serve as a resource, and I may periodically attend the meetings in the future, and certainly but yeah, I was just gonna sort of step out of my position just because I have a few of the things that happen on Mondays in the evenings, and then also I'm going to be away for quite a bit this winter. So
I would just like to say that Scott has a tremendous amount of knowledge in, trees. I mean, it's fascinating to listen to you, Scott, talk about trees and, the hormones even that the trees put off that make us feel good. And, you're so passionate and knowledgeable about this. And, you're at my neighbors helping them with a tree that partially came down and, you can save the rest of the tree. And I mean, you really have a gift for this. And I would just like, to say in front of the group that, that can be put to good use in other ways than just being on this committee, and so everyone has times when life work balance and, you just need to prioritize, and it's okay. You're still committed to this cause, but it's okay that you don't have the capacity right now for this committee.
Mhm.
So that's what Scott and I talked about. All right, so I would just like to, I'm sure speak to on behalf of everyone on the committee. Thank you for, what you have done for this committee, Scott.
sure, yeah, thanks, and appreciate it, and certainly a lot of good.
Thanks for helping out in the parade.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, well, let's all give Scott a big thank you, and Scott, thank you so much.
yeah, sure thing. Yeah, anytime. And any other questions, feel free to call or anytime. So
Yeah, Scott has offered to continue to be a resource for us, which is so huge because he does have such a, really deep knowledge base in forestry. So we don't have anybody else with that. So we may still call on you. So you offered, so we may.
yeah, and one thing I may have mentioned it once before, but very often at the end of the season, with the wholesale growers I work with, we can get trees sometimes marked down to almost 80% off in the fall. So if there's some grant money available, or somebody has a project in town that where they want trees, we can certainly, that's just available also.
Okay, Deb.
Thank you, Scott. I'm just wondering, what does that do to our quorum, or do we need somebody to fill his position, or can it just stay vacant until the spring? Or, I mean, how does this affect us moving forward?
Sure. So that was a question I had too. And I met with the mayor. It's the first time I had met her in person a couple of Wednesdays ago. And I asked her that question. And she said, no, we need someone who has the time to work on this. And she asked me if I knew of anyone. So, but she will appoint someone new. It's up to the mayor. But she did not want the position to be vacant. That was clear. She said, no, we do not want sustainability to be vacant. It's too important. So I feel confident she'll work quickly to find someone. That's the
Okay,
answer.
thank you.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you, Scott, for everything.
Yeah, thank you guys also. Yeah, appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Take care.
Okay, yeah, take care. Yep, good night. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, see you.
Right.
Okay, sorry I interrupted you sort of mid-sentence, Kelly.
No,
Go
it's fine.
continue. So,
Um,
yeah, lead plaque.
Yep. So the last two items are a lead plaque and something that Alder Hanairo has talked about for 2 years now, and I haven't done it, but ordering recycling center magnets to hand out at tabling events. in general, when I do tabling events, I don't really have much swag to give out except handouts, and people don't really want handouts. So I'd like to work on that maybe with an intern over the next year. But one thing I think would be helpful for all citizens is to get some recycling center phone numbers and, you know, some information in hand through things like that.
Yeah.
Just on tabling, we do have some leftover parade bags, both from last year, the little foldable ones, and as well as some of the other types. So if you need a few of each of those, they're in your closet stash there. We don't have any particular use for them designated. So if you need other things for a tabling event, you just to remind you have those.
Yes, thank you so much. I used a few of them when I tabled at the Catholic Church a few weeks ago. During a climate, they had a climate presentation with Bob Lindmeyer from WKOW, and I handed out some bags, and people loved them. They loved them.
Right. Well, I really think, Kelly, it's my opinion, I think you should move forward personally on the construction bid procurement training. That's not a gray area. Kermit, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was going to comment about the recycling center magnets as one item. Just includes at minimum the Middleton Sustainability Committee logo and website, just so that we're getting our brand out there as well, and that resource. In addition to the recycling center, I mean, I think it's a good partnership for that to be on the same bit of swag.
No, that's a good idea. That's great.
And are we at a point then, just following up what Christy was saying, do we want to turn this into a formal motion of approval, or is there just the sense that this is more, you're letting us know what?
How about if we hear from Laura quick, and then we come back to your question, Kermit?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just following up with Kermit on terms of I'm for all the stuff listed there, especially the training.
Right.
And I think the magnets are actually, I would even probably spend more money to have more.
Right.
I have a Madison magnet up telling me how to recycle from an event that I went to. And I thought, is this the same as Middleton? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's what I'm following. And it tells me what to recycle, what to put a lid on, what not to. I think that the citizens would really benefit and like that. And it's a worthy expenditure.
Yep. Agree. So I don't even know, Kermit, do we need a motion, or do we, I mean, we could, but.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's a question of, is this standard discretionary expenditure? I think we have a pretty steady pattern of having a motion for major expenditures.
Okay.
And so I think, I move that we authorize expenditures for the items listed in agenda item 4 as part of the 2023 operating budget expenditures.
Well, although, do you just want to say the bottom 3, because the recycling center supplies Kelly's going to have to check on? Or do we just want to approve it?
I think we can approve it.
Okay.
And if we find out there's a policy hiccup, but I mean, I think it can be, again, based on our precedent, that falls into our normal pattern of expenditures historically. So
Do you want to add in that she can spend much more than, I mean, we have the funds, she can spend much more than under $200 on the magnets?
Okay. Do we want to change what do we want to put a number there? I mean, we should.
800?
A friendly amendment to the motion. What?
Why don't we say
$600?
Why don't we say we approve what she's got listed, and she has discretion to spend the remaining money is about a little less than 1,000 or something for the rest. So just give her this discretion to spend it in the next month. If it can be spend it.
Yeah. It's not my motion, but I feel like, Kelly, you don't need to come. We've approved this, or hopefully we are. We're about. Anyone second the motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But
Okay, so Kelly,
point of order, we had
Oh.
multiple friendly amendments on the floor that were not
oh,
integrated. I'm just concerned that we,
do you want to summarize?
so, well, or if Kelly was keeping track, I'm willing to hear her distillation.
I don't know if you want to hear my distillation.
Okay. Okay, so I move that we approve the recommended budget 2023 expenditures listed in item 4, including discretionary authority to spend up to the limit of the remaining budget balance for any one of those items.
Do we have a second? Laura,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I don't see any nays. Okay, so Kelly, this means if you want to spend $800 or the rest of it on magnets or whatever, you don't need to come back and check with us. It's nice you do, but I think we have given you the green light here, so thank you. Okay, so I think we can move on. Now that that's settled, we can move on to, would you mind, Kelly, throwing up the ideas for 2024 expenditures,
Oh.
that little chart I sent you?
Mhm.
Thank you. So these are just proposals and ideas. It's absolutely not set in stone, but I'm just trying to get a little bit more ahead on thinking of next year's budget.
Sorry, I do have this. Do you see it now?
Yep, yep. So I welcome ideas, input, redlining things, anything, this can be a continual discussion, but this is what I had in mind. The utility flyer is a really nice communication tool. Maybe even more than 600 now. I don't know. It's probably 800 or something, but it's close. It seems, the Good Neighbor Fest was 2,500, a good amount. Did the subcommittee feel like, that's up for debate too, but that's what was this year. I'd like to do more with communications, even if we pay for some, graphics, shareable social things, that we can just get the word out on things more. So I just put a line item there. People certainly like meeting attendance. I didn't put trainings in here, but that would be something as well. A question is celebration. Do we want to do our own or do we want to join Dane counties? What do people think? Events take a lot of work, is
Yeah.
my thought. Dick.
Collaboration is always good. I'd say if Dane County is doing something that we can partner with and co-sponsor, that's a good way to multiply impact in my mind.
Yeah. Dick, you have a thought?
You're talking about celebration specifically or about the budget in total?
Well, I guess, they tie together, right? Because if we're gonna do it in Middleton. Yeah.
I mean, again, celebration, if Dane County wants to be the lead on it, we could partner. That's a big benefit. I mean, Lisa was the real driver of our last one, and quite frankly, somebody has to take it on. So unless somebody on the committee really wants to take this on, then they would have to come up with a budget that would be needed for that. But given that I don't know that anybody is going to want to do it, I could be wrong, then I don't think we should necessarily earmark any budget yet. But I see you got a total of 9,100 already here. One thing I wanted to comment on about the communications, I think that's a great idea. And I think the communications person should be helping put together what goes in the utility flyer. The $600 is just the cost of submitting it, but we need to put some real thought into what it is we're going to communicate with the utility flyer, which is one of the few ways we know we can get to each household. So I think the communications should be put front and center because the utility flyer has got to be done fairly soon.
Yeah.
So we're not waiting until the middle of the year to miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
The Good Neighbor Fest parade, let me just finish. The Good Neighbor Fest parade. I think that the bag thing we sent out last year was a big hit. The foldable one, Deb found that, and we got them done locally. I really liked that, and I think it's a nice community gesture. However, after some point, it would be like, oh God, they're giving out more bags, you know. So I would be in favor of doing it at least one more year, but I'd be interested in hearing Deb's thoughts on it and others.
Do you have a comment, Deb? Deb?
Oh, well, I guess get my hand up too. I was going to say, don't forget Sustainable Middleton Awards. I don't see that
Oh,
listed
that's a
anywhere.
miss. That's a miss. Yeah.
And as far as the bags go, yes, I think one more year would be appropriate. We did the regular shopping bags that don't fold down. We did those for 2 years. And so this would be our second year with the fold up bags, and then probably something else. Maybe
Yeah.
Dick and I won't be around in another year. So, somebody have a different idea.
Okay.
And speaking of the Sustainable Middleton Awards, it just occurred I went out for dinner last night, and just for me singly, and it was on the internet, it said it had $2 signs. So I thought, well, this place won't be all that expensive, right? So anyway, it was with a tip and everything, it was like $40 for me, and I only had one glass of wine. So I'm thinking $50 was what we were going to give individuals as a gift certificate to go to a local restaurant in Middleton. I'm thinking that's not enough money to cover 2 people. And that's why I was thinking we might give more if we have some individuals.
Yep.
So I don't know what's appropriate, double that $100 or 75 or whatever, but I don't want to be cheap on it.
Yep.
I want it to cover their meal
That's a
without getting them drunk. So
that's reasonable. Yes. A good point on that. What was the amount? Do you remember offhand? Otherwise I can check. What was the amount budgeted for this year? Was that the right amount?
Well, we had most of the plaques done gratis. We gave out just to the 2 woodworking shops that helped on it. We gave them, I think, each $50. So we have a whole bunch of plaques. We have to spend a fair bit of money with Alpha Graphics to print the certificates. So there's a few $100s in that. We didn't have any individuals apply last year. So we were originally going to, I don't know if we budgeted a couple $100 or $300 for $50 a piece, and we got nobody applying. I think you should probably put down $600 for the award, and that will at least give us some wiggle room. And if we go over that, then we'll have to come back and ask for more. I like Deb's idea of $100 for an individual certificate. I think that's more meaningful than 50. But we, given we didn't get anybody to apply for it last year, we didn't get caught. But if we had a bunch of people, of course, then that would affect our budget. But I doubt that we're going to get a plethora of people. So I'd say budget 600. Deb, maybe you have a different idea, but that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. And the $1,500 educational signs, that it was just a thought, an idea, because people complain about apparently not having, manicured landscaped grass. And so it's an idea. Tony, go ahead.
I was just thinking of Kevin Spitler's comment that included mentioning the Madison Cross Plains School District and their 2021 sustainability resolution. And I was wishing that our student representative was here to give us some ideas. But I think having some budgetary line for collaborating with our student representative and projects that she may be involved with, but possibly larger. Kevin mentioned the McKinstry report that's coming out in a couple of weeks. That's kind of a broad look at sustainability planning within the whole school system. And so we have that point of contact, and maybe having some dollars to support that would be a good idea. Although I don't know exactly how to quantify that. What exactly would be the kinds of things? Maybe many of members know that from the past. I don't know that.
I think that's a great idea to have, just a budget amount and, I know I've offered to, and I'm sure anyone on this committee would be willing, if they want to have a meeting, I offered to come, and I probably just need to remind her, but if they wanted me, or I'm sure Kelly would be more than willing, or any of us to come in to their meeting and just kind of put a face to the name, say who we are, and gosh, we could even, we're not supporting the tax thing if we just sponsor a meeting, I don't think, and this club and bring in treats or pizza party or something. And that's just one idea. I really like that, Tony. I think that's really powerful.
And Christy, just to clarify, are you talking about connecting with the Middleton Environmental Club?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
As
Well,
opposed
and I mean, the
as
McKinstry
opposed to
idea.
going to the school board meeting, which is actually something else that I think we might consider. That wouldn't necessarily, but that's not a budget item. That's more
right. Yeah.
partnership and strategy thing, which I think we all.
No, but I'm just talking about, I guess, engagement with the green team because, we could do a lot together. I think that's a fabulous idea, Tony. And I think we should throw budget at it. I think that would, I think that's 1,500 for City Hall, and this can be a work in progress too, but I definitely think we should add that. Whether it's doing joint events, or, and I don't think that gets into the area we're not supposed to be in. Deb.
Mute. I think 1,500 is probably way over what you would spend for native plant little signs, because I purchased them when I was in, when we did a garden, we being my environment classes, when we did a garden at Rosemary, Garfoot Library, and they weren't anywhere near that kind of cost. So I think you've got extra money there.
I made that up. I mean, the Xerces Society, I don't know if I'm saying it right. They have some that I was going to put in my yard for pollinating it. They were like $60 each or something. So, okay, I'll fix that. Yeah. Okay. Kermit, good idea.
On the educational sign question, I guess in my mind, I was not sure whether that number was as large as it was because we were talking maybe more about a signed, on the order of sophistication and permanence as the Middleton Historical Society. The signs they have up front where it says, I mean, I could see something where saying the reason these plants are the way they are is because this is sustainable prairie reef restoration or native plants, whatever. And that could be more than just a little stick in the ground with a little plant information. So anyways, so it might be more than the small $60 thing, but it doesn't need to be that. I was just wanting to clarify.
That's a good point. I appreciate this feedback very much. And Kelly, I had talked to, ran this idea by Kelly, and she said, well, it would really be, we'd really need to loop in Kylie too, because she manages the, public areas. So that's key. And then, maybe we could co-fund it, but that gets into then, is that building, I've learned a little bit more, even since I put this together and sent it, that that building might not even be there in 3 years. So how much do we want to invest?
Right.
If anything, maybe those little $75 signs each that are stick in the ground, maybe that's what we do for now and we can move those, or something.
Right.
But I like this discussion. So I'm going to add in the sustainable Middleton award 600, and send anything if you think of things later. 600 for that green team. I think go pretty big on that. And I'll move the signs down to like what, $150 for now, just for now, educational signs.
Yeah, just give us some flexibility. Hey, we're
Yeah.
in November. Let's give us a little
Right.
chance next winter and spring to come up with bigger numbers. and
Yeah,
stuff.
okay, so I'm just gonna, just for practical, throwing 150 green team. I think we should go big on that. I really like that, Tony. So I'm thinking 800 or 1,000 for that. I mean, what do people think?
Well,
Eh.
I type in here, I mean, the school resolution was a great thing and Daphne carried it over the finish line. But I don't see the school district reacting to that other than in the Cromery, they did a great job there, and I think that should be eligible for a Sustainable Middleton Award. I'm not sure that the high school, they didn't put in geothermal or they didn't do a number of things. And they're supposed to be working on a composting facility set up, and that hasn't gone anywhere. So I think there's opportunities to do more with the school district, and I really would like to see us even come up with a subcommittee to start working with the green team on that, because I think they identified that as one of their major projects and challenges. And I feel a lot could be gained there on that if we could get one going at the school and how that fits in with the community. So I don't know how you're thinking $1,000 working with the green team,
I
but
made it.
yeah.
Events, I don't know. I'm open to anything.
Yeah.
It could be way off base or, you know.
I think that might be appropriate to maybe table until we can have some conversation with Shreya and or the team overall to see, do they have some projects or dreams or ideas that we could, rather than throwing money at them, say, do something, saying, what are you being kept from doing that you could use support with, even if it's financial? And
Yeah, you know,
get some
I was
ideas that
thinking
way.
more of like joint events or I don't know. I don't know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I would encourage us to let the students take the lead on that,
Right, that-
but invite
Yep.
them to give us some, like Shreya, to give us some input.
Yep, okay. Okay,
I think you got enough here to get going on.
yep, yep.
Yep, yep.
So I'll
Yeah.
just update that and we'll keep it as a working, but working budget.
I mean, and just in terms of what I see the benefit and perhaps the objective of getting this together up front is that we can approve it in advance, like in January, and then it's not an ongoing thing hanging over us, like, what are we going to do? It's like we've thought about it, we've put it down on paper, and people don't need to keep on coming back asking. It's like there's allocations and permission.
Yep. Oh, and I didn't even put, yes. I missed something else, which is in the work initiatives. Speaking of which, should we transition to the work initiatives update? So one thing I missed in the budget was to do a Middleton operations, a mock center tour and provide a lunch, and that would be in the budget too, like $400 or something like that. But that would be a nice way to go tour, us to learn and engage. Lisa and Alder Haniro did that and found it very beneficial, and we could potentially do it with another committee like Parks or something like that, just as a learning opportunity and engagement, relationship building with them. So I'll add that in. But so we talked about LED bulbs and affordable housing, right? Did we do we have everything done there for now?
Yeah, the only thing is Deb and I have been texting back and forth, and we need to set up a meeting with Kelly and Elevate. And I think what Deb and I were agreeing on is that probably per apartment, we should have the building manager or owner, whoever it is that's going to contact them, because Kelly was saying that they're the ones probably that'll affect this, that we would come up with a number of different types of bulbs that would be available, that per apartment. Of course, if there's a need for more, we'll be open to that, but that we would give the building manager, say they have 4 units, so 4 times the number of apartments, would whatever our cash is would be that the building manager would then work directly and try to get them exchanged. If they need more bulbs of a certain type, we'll accommodate them. So we just need to set a meeting up. So Kelly, can we do this sometime after Thanksgiving? Meet
Yeah.
with you and Elevate and Deb and I don't know if anybody else wants to be on it, but at least us two.
That's
Okay.
good. Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on to spring paper shredding event. Go ahead. Do you want to talk about that, Kelly? Or who
Well-
else is on that one?
Yeah, just me. I'm going to organize a spring paper shredding event. It's just something that I need to do for my job. It's something that the citizens demand more than anything else, and I'll staff it along with recycling center folks. And I just wanted to open it up. The question doesn't need to be answered today. If you wanted to combine an event like that around probably in May with anything else. So just think about that. You have some time to think about it, not a lot, but we'll go ahead with the shredding event.
Okay. Thank you. Deb, do you want to talk and Dick, do you want to talk about just helping get the word out about the Sustainable Middleton Awards?
I'll let Deb do that.
Well, I put together a press release, and I thought you should go to the Middleton Times. Maybe Brian Gatter could send it out in an email blitz. Last time I sent it to Lisa because she sends out a monthly report on what's going on with the council. I don't know if any other council members do that or not, but I asked her to forward it on. If they do, they would have the materials, to get it out to their constituents. But it goes out to just Middleton, so it wouldn't be like Madison newspapers or anything. So if you've got an idea as to where else, the Chamber of Commerce, it's got to go to them because they were able to get businesses applying last year. Any other ideas?
Well, when I met with the mayor, go ahead, Kelly, do you have something else?
I was just gonna say, any press release will need to go through Brent McHenry, who's our communications person, but he's great. He's fabulous, and he can do way more than what we've done in the past. He's connected to the chamber and to all the different groups. He can help with media, sending the press release out and making sure it's picked up. He can help send it out. What Brian used to do, Brent will do. So I think we should lean pretty hard on him and see if he has any ideas, that are more than what we've already come up with. And I can handle that. I can coordinate.
Okay. Thank you.
How about neighborhood associations? I know I live in Stonefield, and they've always got some newsletter thing that comes out about different events. And Lisa's really on top of communicating to her people in her district. Can you, Kelly, just make sure, or have this other person make sure that each alder gets the communication and let them know that they need to try to get it to their constituents? I mean, they must have some way of communicating to people in their district. So I think we should put asking each alder to disseminate this. And if there are neighborhood associations that actually have connections, we should get it to them too. I mean, any way we can get it to the citizens. I mean, the chambers has a way to get it to the businesses, although not every business is a member of the chamber, right? So how about the other businesses? How do they get it?
I think the mayor would be open to, she expressed openness and wanting this type of content. And she seems to like, these types of awards and things. So if we just make sure she has it to send out, and she's the one who said the easiest way for me to share things is shareable graphics. And so one of my personal goals is to figure out this get started. It's pretty easy. It's very easy, but just to do it, this Canva which you can do these shareable graphics so easily. Like the volleyball coaches do it, and so if I just like
Right.
even have the logo, we can just push it out. Go ahead, Kermit.
I was just gonna say that, a need that we and others that in the city have talked about is having somebody do communications, and it sounds like they have a person. So I don't think, we can delegate that job now. We can
Yeah,
say,
true.
we
true.
want this to get out to all the citizens in Middleton.
Yeah, right.
Tell us
Good
what
point.
you're gonna do, and
That's a
I
good
mean,
point. Yeah,
Kelly's speaking highly of this staffer, so I think
great.
we,
Yeah,
we can check that off the list here by delegating it.
that's a
And
very good point. It's like a mental shift to have to, thank you.
wait, we have a staff person who can work on
I
this?
know. I
But-
know.
I mean, Kelly, do you have the best contact to the media person about our Sustainable Middleton Award announcement?
Yeah, I see him every day, so we can, as long as I have what you want me to put out there, I can
Well, that's
send it.
done, right? That's
Yeah,
done, right, Deb?
I emailed it to you several days ago.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay.
Okay.
And if he wants to feed back some ideas like, hey, I need some additional information or pictures, or give me one of those plaques so I can take a picture of it. That's perfectly fair game as far as I'm concerned.
Well, there was
Well,
one recommendation from somebody that suggested we should also announce who the award winners were last year, so that that kind of helps get the community to realize, hey, this is serious.
Yeah, I
Right.
think Kelly took a picture of the winners, at least at the council meeting, the nonprofits. Well, a picture must have been taken at the chamber as well.
There was one.
Yeah, so if we could put those two in, that would be great. They could be small, side by side or something.
Yeah, and I think we had in the press release that went out in the newspaper, we had the synopsis of why they won the award or what they did, so I don't know. There's plenty of material, and if you need more, Kelly, let us know. But I know Deb has worked hard to update the award for this year.
Right. Okay, so thank you. Kelly and I will move forward. Does everyone like the idea of the mock tour? And us provide our committee providing lunch, I don't think we need to provide lunch for the parks if we're gonna do it with them. They can buy part of their lunch, but for a joint lunch, sort of relationship building and learning. Do people like that idea?
And just to clarify, you're talking about, this is like for the committee, as opposed to like a general public event.
Yeah, for the
kind of.
committee, and not everyone on the committee is going to be able to make it, but not every one day it's going to work for everyone, but we'll try our best. And whoever can make it and wants to, great. If you can't, or it's just not your thing, that's fine too. But do people like this idea?
Well, I like the idea of touring it. I don't know if it's worth the effort to try to do a lunch just for our committee members. Although on the other hand, it may be an opportunity for our committee members to finally meet each other face to face.
Well, it was more for them, like it was us too, but I don't want to buy our lunch just for the committee, but it was like a nice gesture to do for them. I'm sure they have to prepare for it, and to kind of sit down and just share a meal quick, cousins, Jimmy John's subs or something.
Subs, perfect
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
Subs
just-
or water bottle.
Yeah.
And maybe not during the winter when it's cold, because we want to be able to walk
Yes.
around, maybe in the spring, huh?
Oh, true. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And this is the operations center overall, more, not just the recycling center you're talking about?
I think that's what they did, Kelly, right? The whole thing?
They
Or-
went through the operations building and the recycling center. They're on the same site.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It could be especially interesting because of the sustainability issues, of course, that we're pushing them to help us with.
Yeah. And I just think I like the idea of it also, that we're presenting ourselves as a partner that is open and wants to dialogue with them. I think that goes a long way. So
Yeah, buy them a sub and a drink.
Right.
That's right. It's nothing fancy, but just, yeah. Deb,
Okay, I'm on others already because it's 8:20.
good
So
job. Yes, good.
whatever. Okay, so the other is, when I was reading through the packet, there was something in there about sustainable U. And it occurred to me that if Dane County is really up on what is in the inflation fighting bill for homeowners, you know, what kind of rebates you can get for buying an electric car, whatever, that might be a great sustainable U to have. And this year, the Friends had to go to Thursday at 6 o'clock because the library scheduled somebody on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. So if you were going to do the opposite month that we, you know, the Friends took odd months and the Sustainability Committee took even months, I would say that Thursday at 6 o'clock slot on the even months would be open. And I would be willing to contact Kathy Kuntz and see if she's available and put at least that one sustainable U on. Because I think that one is really important. And I don't know if there's one for businesses that's already being planned, but that might be another sustainable U where, you know, grants that are specific to businesses that coming out of that federal legislation. That
I
might be
like
good.
that. Do we need budget for that too? Should we throw a
I
couple?
don't think so. Kathy
No?
Kuntz is paid salary by the county.
Okay.
I don't think she charges, does
No,
she?
no, no. No, I don't think so,
Yeah.
but the library or, you know.
If
The
it's-
library doesn't charge, no. It's,
If it's a Zoom event, especially,
it'd be a face-to-face, I would think. And then because the library doesn't have it's either got to be one or the other. They don't do a combined.
don't they?
Okay.
I thought they were
No,
getting
they
the
were supposed
technology
but
to
they
do
didn't.
that.
They
Well-
were supposed to, but they didn't.
Well,
Oh,
Deb did a good job of reining me in here, but I do like to try to cut off right at 8:30 when we
Yep.
can. So if anyone has any standing agenda items, you know, well, go ahead, Kermit.
I just, the school board meeting coming up seems like it could be worth having representation at December 4th, just because if I understand correctly, they are presenting their sustainability plan report. And whether there's a chance for public comment where we could say, hooray, you guys keep it going, or what, I don't know, but I just want to put in a plug for that. I'm going to see if my schedule can, I'm going to confirm their agenda and see if my schedule can accommodate.
Okay. All right. If no one has anything else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for a very good discussion. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christy.
Thank you, Christy.
Yep. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
everybody.
Night.
Good night.